Okay, so it's 5 p.m. in Bremen, and we are starting the latest installment of our webinar. Today, we'll be discussing Code University of Applied Sciences, which is a highly innovative institution, which at the same time has a rather classic origin story. The founder, Thomas Buckham, was looking to create something that he himself could not find when he was exploring the landscape of higher education, which is the best possible origin story you could think of. And today we'll discuss what has come out of that, whether the university is successful, and most importantly, whether you, our audience, can take a couple of leaves from its book, and if so, which ones are the most up-to-date and applicable. I am passing the, okay, so let's talk about the format, because we tend to forget to do that. Our webinar is strictly 60 minutes long. We go live every Thursday at 5 p.m. unless we change the timing to accommodate our Asian speakers, which will be the case with the next webinar. Afterwards, recordings are available on YouTube, and you are welcome to share your impressions using hashtag Innovative Universities. If you tag either me or Isak Frumin, the second co-host, we will respond to your comment, and you can also tag our speaker, and let's see if Peter will be willing to engage in the conversation. Our webinar has a pretty esteemed steering committee, which is where we are getting ideas for next universities to explore. So I'm told my video is freezing. Am I heard well? Okay, Peter is saying all good. So let's go on. Okay, finally, I get the chance to stop talking and give the floor to Peter Ruppel, who is the president of Code University. And let's hear what he has to say. Peter.
Thank you very much, Dara. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. And in the next 15 to 20 minutes, it's my pleasure to share with you some insights on Code University of Applied Sciences, which I joined over 4 years ago as a professor of software engineering. And since 1 year, I'm serving as the president of the university. And what I'm here for mainly today is to address 2 questions. One is why a change in higher education is necessary, we believe, and also what can be done about it. And I would like to share some examples of what we are doing at Code. 7 years ago, Code was started in Berlin, in Germany, because the founders, Tom, Jonathan, and Manuel, believed that there is a need to change higher education, particularly when it comes to digital education and when it comes to learning about the development of digital products and everything that is related to that. So we're talking about software engineering, we're talking about product management, we're talking about interaction design. And when we think about current developments, especially rather recent developments in the past 12 to 24 months, and if we see what is happening in the world of AI, it is very clear also that education has to adapt and has to change, and that we cannot continue with lots of old school formats like classical lectures and frontal teaching. And there have been a lot of great approaches being demonstrated by various institutions around the world. And also Code took inspiration from other great institutions, such as, for example, Minerva University, which I understand was also part of this series in the past, this webinar series. And maybe it can also be interesting for a moment to look at the German educational market and to note that that 422 universities that operate in Germany at the moment offer a total of almost 22,000 study programs. And in Germany, the German listeners in the audience know that there is a speciality, the distinction between universities and universities of applied sciences. And if we zoom into that right region, that's where you find code. So we do offer, as a University of Applied Sciences, undergraduate programs for bachelor students. Also interesting is the primary language used in higher education in Germany. And here you see that on the left column, the undergraduate programs, the vast majority of the 11,400 programs are primarily taught in German, whereas only 349 are currently delivered primarily in English. And you see also that's where we are located. So everything that is done at Code happens in English. Interestingly, if we look at the developments in Germany over the past decade, master programs, graduate programs are rising much more than bachelor's programs, and also the presence of English is increasing there over time. But talking about Code in more detail, we are a comparatively small university with around 600 students. There are 37% of our students coming from all around the world, and I really mean all around the world. There is not a single big country with a second place in this distribution, but students are coming from all around the world. And we look at an average age in our students of 23. And what is important to say is that our mission is that we want to empower, educate, and unite innovative technology leaders and entrepreneurs who change the world. So this is something that is very important to us. And when we look at our free study programs that we offer in the moment, we are thinking about master programs, by the way, then you see this is a classic European 3-year, 180 credit points program, first of all on paper, but it's very interesting to look into how this program is actually implemented. The first orientation semester, which is the same for every student at Code, irrespective of their program, is a lot about unlearning what students might have learned about learning before joining Code and encouraging them to engage in learning in a rather highly self-determined fashion. This is followed by 4 core semesters where students are heavily engaged in project-based learning, doing a lot of applied projects and learning there, followed by a synthesis semester, which includes a capstone project. What is also interesting from a curriculum design perspective is that you see this, and you don't need to read the details, but if you zoom out a bit, there is a common core to all of this here in the study programs, which covers basics of digital product development design, but also very importantly, science, technology, society. So we are talking about a very basic liberal arts education as well, besides the technical aspects. There are few mandatory parts depending on the study program, but then there are also lots of topics students can freely choose from and work on what they want. And this brings me to maybe one of the most important aspects here, that we have already in the founding phase of the university made a very deliberate decision that this university is about bringing people together in the same room, working together, learning to collaborate, and at the same time collaborating to learn. Students can freely choose projects they want to work on. This has, of course, to align with the learning goals that they set for themselves. And then they are expected to highly independently work on these projects. And the professors at Code are there to support them, of course, with questions, with topics, also to deliver some courses, but these courses are not classical lectures. These are much more interactive formats. And what I personally find really good about this, also as someone who is coming from a more classic computer science background and also after having co-founded a technology startup, is that working on these projects, not small ones, but big ones, allow to really learn about the nitty-gritty details of everything that is then related to actually setting up a project, working together with your peers, people you might not know, people who come from a different background, a different culture, who have other expectations, maybe sometimes other priorities in the semester, and making this work. And sometimes these projects also fail. They fall apart. This happens. We consider this to be part of the learning journey. But project-based learning and the projects are really a very essential and very core part of the learning experience at Code. The other part is our campus. This is really vital, we believe, also for a modern higher education setup, that there is an environment where people like to be around, like to come and like to meet. And if you ever are in Berlin or around Berlin, you are very welcome to be our guests, to come by and to visit. We also regularly offer open house days. If you're interested, just let us know. And this campus is really also made to collaborate, to meet each other, to bump into each other in the kitchen area, or later in the afternoon when someone plays on the piano. So besides all the courses and besides all the technical aspects of projects and topics, we also believe that it's very, very important during the time of studies to build a strong personal social network with your peers and that there's time to meet. That doesn't mean that it is necessary that students need to be around every day on campus all of the time. And even though some students like to do that, even 7 days a week, we believe it is just important that there is sufficient room and space that these connections can be made. Also worth to note is that Code is also a university of entrepreneurs. In the 7 years so far, we have observed a comparatively very high number of students who decided to to found a startup. And so far to date, we can say that around 12% of our students have already founded a company during their studies. And we have also observed that there is a significant number of these startups who have gained a real traction. 5 of them already went through the really nice and well-known Y Combinator program. And what we also see, and again, this is also something that makes me very happy to observe, is that the students also then manage to combine the learnings that they get from their work in their startups with their studies, because we also allow them to bring these learnings and to take these competencies that they gain while working on these initiatives back into the curriculum, back into their modules, to also get credit points for that. And this is also very interesting, and maybe something we could also discuss later during the panel discussion, that this was not something that the university in the very beginning enforced or steered from a structural perspective, not in terms of setting up fixed university structures for allowing this, but it was the students that were joining Code, the entrepreneurs who decided to initiate that. And over the semesters, lots of different formats and support structures emerged and were created. And nowadays, I'm very happy to say that this has created a very dense network of entrepreneurs, of investors, of then also experienced people from the Berlin startup ecosystem who are regularly coming together and collaborating together. There's one more thing I would like to share with you, which is also very exciting for us right as we speak. We will move to a new campus in about 2 months from now. We will move around 2 kilometers south within the city of Berlin into a new building where we will share the spaces with other very exciting, innovative organizations and companies. And what is, I believe, very nice about this building, that this is one of the very first instances in the city of Berlin where a former old shopping center and parking garage has been completely repurposed and now serves as a local hub for education and technology innovation. And we are very much looking forward to this change, because it also constitutes a major improvement for our space. So if you in the future again are around around Berlin, feel free to stop by. We are located right in the heart of Berlin-Neukölln. Thank you very much for your attention. If you would like to find out more also about student initiatives and more details about these projects, you can also check out lots of social media channels here. Our students are very active there. And this might also give you a good insight into everyday life at Code. If you follow this barcode, you can also find a video about all the dogs that are also regularly on our campus. I had to share that because I'm a very big dog fan. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Peter. And also, I think this has been the briefest introduction we've seen in our webinar series. So we have more time for discussion now. The first question I have is, German higher education system is not exactly well known for being light on bureaucracy and welcoming to innovative and experimental university models. How did you become state recognized?
Thank you for that question. So actually, we were very happy how open the state of Berlin was when it came to allowing the start of the university, to going through the concept accreditation in the beginning. And we were given a lot of freedom there to try out and experiment, and we were very happy about that. At the same time, it is true that founding a university and going through the accreditation, the institutional accreditation and the study program accreditation is a lot of work. It involves a lot of documents and everything, and some of these processes can also take a lot of time. So this is true, but we are also very happy that we successfully went through the institutional accreditation then after the founding phase. Then 5 years later, the first full accreditation starts. We have successfully accomplished that, and I think this is a very good sign that there's definitely room in the German higher education system to experiment. There are other institutions who are also experimenting. And what is, of course, important, and it's also sometimes, of course, challenging that you want to try out something new, some new format, some new module, and somehow then have to connect to what is there in terms of regulations. But also what I have personally experienced is that if you have a convincing concept and if you can explain that what you are doing is ultimately beneficial to the students and will lead to students learning better, then this is accepted.
So building upon the phrase beneficial to students and learning better, I have a question from Isak, who's not here, but his questions are. He's asking whether you do research, and if so, what kind of research that is, and if not, how does that fare within German higher education system, which is historically focused on research universities?
Yes, we do research, yes. The kind of research we do and the amount of research we do is, of course, different to research that is going on maybe at a bigger state university, where also the whole model for the professors looks slightly different. So it might be important to highlight this first, that if we look at universities of applied sciences in Germany, then the professors typically have a much higher number of hours they're supposed to work with students. So these are 18 semester weekly hours typically for a full professor, which is around double the time if you compare it to a professor at a university or Universität. And this means that the time that is available to research is naturally lower overall for the university as a whole in comparison. That is the first important remark. The second one is that the type of research is typically much more applied. So we do not do basic research, but very applied research. To give an example, we have a very nice ongoing research project together with an institution in a neighboring city, in the city of Potsdam, which focuses on inclusion tech. So people with disabilities and the question how to allow them to participate in digital jobs and to work with digital technologies, which is funded by a German ministry. There are other projects, also publicly funded grants projects, which allow us to do research on topics of learning, programming in schools, for example. But we also have a couple of industry-related research projects where we work closely together with partner organizations, for example, companies like Deutsche Telekom or also Porsche, the car manufacturer. And in such initiatives, we also then look together, often together with students in industry-related research questions. But again, overall, if you think about the total amount of research and compare it to a chair at a universität, there is clearly a difference. And again, this is maybe also important to note when we do this kind of research, we also always try to include our students in that and to allow them to directly participate in that.
Thank you. Now, a step back to education. What I've noticed with a lot of innovative universities, they begin as being different. For example, Maastricht University was one of the first ones which introduced learning in small groups, student-centered learning. And then they ended up being one of the legion because other universities have kept copying their practices because they saw that, well, that was something reasonable, that was something to use within their structures. And now, at least in that aspect, it's not that innovative, but it's looking for other ways to stay ahead of the curve. What are you doing? How are you staying relevant and different?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I would like to say that we are always very, very happy when we see that someone is maybe taking over or copying something, because we also still see and believe that there are still too few offerings available, generally speaking, for students who would like to embark on a highly self-determined and self-driven and curiosity-driven education. There are, simply put, not enough seats in the German education system available to that, and we would love to see that improving. Now, on the second part of your question, how do we stay innovative? Luckily, our professors are constantly also challenged by our students. Because of this freedom, the students, and you can be assured of that, every semester will bring and use the most novel, bleeding edge framework and technology that is out there. This sometimes poses a challenge because, of course, everybody has to stay up to date. I think this is a very healthy mechanism that we do not say you have to use this programming language, you have to use this tool and so on, but we allow students to use the right tool for the job. Like many other institutions at the moment, and we are also already doing this since a couple of semesters, the whole topic of AI is very interesting to us, very relevant. We have been experimenting with approaches to support students to create better projects by use of AI. We are now one of the first, there are not so many, I believe, universities in Germany yet, who give every student full access to OpenAI's GPT model via one of the startups that was founded at Code, such that students can from day one experiment and learn for free. I think this is very important to reduce the barriers for everyone to engage with new technologies. And because we are a comparatively small team, this also allows us to stay in very direct contact with each other and to also iterate very quickly over the semesters with new formats and with new ideas. If I now look back over the past years, I can say that, for example, just our orientation semester has seen several iterations of improvements. And I think this is one of the advantages of being small, that you can change fast if you want. But of course, at the same time, this also creates a challenge, because you are basically standing in front of the buffet of opportunities or options, and then you have to choose wisely. This is the challenge in this. But overall, what I can say, what will be probably our next big step in the future is definitely that we will soon start exploring more the ideas around graduate education. This is now a very early phase at the moment, but this is definitely something that will become relevant for us in the future. It appears
Seems like
that
I'm having connection issues.
I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Now you're frozen. Or maybe it's me.
Your professors tend to always look for new approaches to implement and the latest technologies to use and introduce in their teaching and in their practice.
Dara,
No,
I'm sorry, you were frozen for a second. Could you please repeat the question?
absolutely. Hey, well, let's see. Can Middle East truly connect to Europe, or can it not? All right. So repeating my question, you mentioned that your professors are always looking.
You're breaking off.
Hey,
Maybe now. Can you try again?
yes. Okay. Trying one more time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is about faculty. You mentioned that you're blessed to have faculty who are always looking to implement new approaches, who are always looking for new technologies to introduce to students. And the question is, how do you attract them? What's the secret?
I think one really important point here is that we have a really great team, and there is a lot of purpose-driven work in this. Now, there is like in every startup, and Code has in the founding years has been something like a startup, very comparable to a startup. There are a lot of moving parts and lots of things to decide upon. And this definitely also has become a challenge with the university growing, that if you go through these growth phases, that once your team grows, your student body grows, and then you have to restructure processes, you have to rethink what you're doing, you have to do things differently to make it work. So this is definitely a quite challenging environment. I would say that the main reason is that people are generally curious. They are curious, and I think they love what they do, and they like these topics. And that's, I think, what's important, that you find these people who are curious and who want to learn.
How do you find them? How do you locate them? Is it that you just spread the message and they come, or do you actively seek the best people for the job?
I think we do the same as many other institutions as well, so we do both. we try to to promote it, but we also try to reach out when we have good ideas, for sure. It is obviously not always easy, because especially if we think about this whole domain of technology and digital products, there are lots of great places around the world where someone who is good at what they do and who are curious can be successful. So we are definitely also in competition with that. But I believe what we can offer here is an environment where someone can really we can really learn together also with students, and is also very free in how they approach this. And I think this has also led to quite a few different offerings that we see. So the way professors work with students, the formats they came up with, there are lots of different great formats that were created.
Okay, so here's a bit of a tougher question. You are in your 2017 seventh year, right, of operation. So in the university years, you are not even an infant. You're kind of at the embryo stage. What are you doing, if anything, to stay young and free and agile? Because you've just mentioned these characteristics as something that helps you attract the best people, and also something that helps you provide students with what they cannot find anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
How do you maintain that?
I like the picture of an infant. Thank you. It's yes, we are very young. We are a very young university in comparison to many other universities, and for anyone who has ever worked in a startup, or has witnessed the development of a young organization, and has gone through the challenges that a young university or a young organization faces, anybody who has experienced that, you can rest assured that all these challenges we are also facing. So in this regards, we are not different than any other young organization that is growing. I believe that there is right now in this time, in the year 2024, there's so much opportunity at the moment. There are so many new developments in this field happening that it's just very exciting to be part of that. And again, everything related to AI is something that significantly impacts what we are doing, that impacts what other institutions are doing, and it also gives a lot of opportunity to learn about this as we go. Also, as an organization, I think this is very important, that we also, as an organization, have to change into the organization that we also want to prepare our students for, because that's something that they will be faced with in the future as well. So what is also, I think, important is to maintain a close network and a close connection with external experts. So regularly working together with freelance lecturers, and also inviting others and externs regularly to allow for this exchange, not just on the level of the more entrepreneurial students and investors and advice, etc., but generally on the level of collaborating with others, reaching out to others and learning from each other. I think this is very important for any organization, because we do not have all the answers, and we can only grow and succeed together, especially if we are talking about a group of institutions, of universities, who are maybe trying to do things a little different here and there. We cannot succeed alone. We have to join forces from time to time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so recalling your presentation, there was this wonderful slide with many, many flags representing multiple nationalities that you have on campus. What role does that play in the learning process, that kind of multicultural student body?
I believe it plays a vital role because it allows students to directly experience what it means to collaborate in such an international and diverse environment. And I think this is a very valuable learning experience that you have to not just maybe solve a technical problem or task, but that you have to find a way to, you as a person, work together with other people from various different backgrounds. And I think this is a very important learning experience for any student in the year 2024.
Which brings us almost directly to campus, because that's where they interact. And by campus, I mean both physical and virtual space. I very much like the fact that you are just moving to the new campus, because I hope that that means that you have incorporated every best practice you could possibly think of into this new structure. And my question is, how is it different from other universities? What are you introducing? What are the new features of your space?
So for a new space, we put a lot of emphasis on designing for the different modes of learning that happen, so that there is a space, an open or more open, flexible space where students can just be and can work, can collaborate, they can work together, and also the furniture and everything is designed for collaboration, for coming together, but not in a way that you have to open a door or you have to go through some gate, but that is very engaging. So you can just be there, and that it is also an enjoyable area. There are also spaces where you can go if you really want to focus. Those are dedicated focus working areas, and that it is also possible to seamlessly switch between these different spaces. There are lots of rooms, smaller rooms that allow for having a planned conversation and meeting, but also a more spontaneous one for small groups where 4, 5, 6 people could go there and can meet. Then we have a couple of rooms that are specifically designed for the different course formats that we offer. They are all not very big, so we are looking at something like around 30 seats max, not more. Where also these rooms are designed in a rather flexible manner when it comes to the layout, but that we can then have very meaningful sessions there together, which could be practical courses, some seminars, or a guild where students meet, discuss projects. It can also be sometimes a project pitch presentation and so on, but it's meant for smaller groups. Then we have, very importantly, a bigger community area, which is just there for the community. You go there, you meet, you mingle. So a space where the space is also located at a part on the campus where when you are on campus, you will have to be there and you will bump into each other. So it's designed to meet. Kitchen area, coffee machine, sofas, piano. There are balconies, you can step outside. And then there are some smaller dedicated rooms, special purpose rooms, if you want to a podcast studio or you name it. So some smaller rooms that you need for meeting. But what I think is important, that all of that is designed also in a way that if you go to the campus and you move along the campus, you will meet other people. There are few places where you can hide when you want, when you need something in quiet, for sure. But it's specifically also designed to meet and to collaborate.
I'm sold. I have this trip to Ukraine planned in the summer, and I found myself thinking, but isn't Berlin on my way from Riyadh to Ukraine? It must be there. So that sounds like a truly great place to be. Now, is your campus tailored to university community only, or do you also have spaces for partners, maybe employers, any kind of interaction with the local community?
Yes. So regarding partners, for example, we are currently working together with Deutsche Telekom to also build and equip a brand new makerspace lab where students can do all kinds of physical computing work, 3D printing, soldering, and so on. That is something what we are doing. We are also then located in this big building I showed before, with neighbors that work in tech, in general in tech. So there's a fintech company there. There is a bigger digital VC located in the building, but also some other organizations. There is I believe it's Berlin's biggest rooftop terrace on top of the building, which will also be partially available to the public. So a part of this building is also available to the public. The other half of the building in the basement, there is a publicly accessible space with some cultural offerings, but also some food offerings. So yes, there are spaces where also the public can go through. But we also, and again, I think this is very important, we also do have our own community space, which is also it's a very safe space in the way that when I walk on campus now, I can safely leave all my belongings, my laptop, all valuable there for hours. Nothing will happen because it's a safe, close community space. So it's not a space where the public can just walk in. You have to announce yourself. But this creates also an environment where our students can more freely stay relaxed over the day because it is not a fully public place, or not all parts.
We have a question from the audience. We have two questions. So let me read them to you. The first one goes, with the whole AI revolution happening, does code foresee student, how does code foresee students' roles and duties and skills to be? So are you projecting into the future? And in addition, for me specifically, are you also trying to program the future? Are you trying to impact it, given that you seem to be at the very heart of new developments? And in other words, that's me continuing reading the question. What new skills does a code graduate, should a code graduate have in an AI world in order to be a competitive professional? And how do you foster learning of those skills?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. First of all, we do embrace the idea of using AI whenever it helps to solve a problem. So if there is a technology, a tool that can do something better or that can help to improve the status quo, we're all for it. And we already see that when it comes to software engineering, for example, there can be tremendous productivity gains on specific tasks, to be clear. It's not just that you can can replace existing tasks entirely. But for certain tasks, this constitutes a major improvement. And we also encourage our students, not only encourage them, they should do it. We also, of course, include that into the conversations, into our courses as well. And then I think it is also important, the skills, regarding the skills question. So on the one hand side, what remains is the need to still know and understand the existing basic methods. So someone still will need in the future to assess or to judge whether something that was AI generated is actually good or not. So this problem is not going away, and I think this is something that is a challenge right now in this change, because sometimes it can feel very easy to generate something which somehow works or somehow gets the job done. But if you then look more closer, it turns out that it actually is not right, or there's something missing or something wrong. And to be able to judge that, to have this critical judgment capability, is something that definitely remains. On the other hand, there are, I believe, very important basic knowledge that someone has to acquire in order to select the right tool for the job, to be able to look at a problem and to decide, how can I solve this problem or support the solution to this problem by using AI? And that requires a good overview, again, of what are the methods that are available at hand, which I can choose from. And I think this is what also higher education should really look into, this question of the methods that remain. They need to be not only known, but they also need to be applied. So someone has to do this, especially in software engineering. This is a painful process to learn. You have to do it. You cannot just look at it, or you cannot just read it. But you have to go through this process. And if we look back over the past decades, this pain has never gone away. Yes, the languages have changed. The abstraction has increased. In former years, or in longer time ago, people might have been writing assembler code and struggling with that. Nowadays, you have a great web framework, and with one line of code, you can generate something, but then it doesn't work, and then you have to know how to solve that problem. So this pain is not going away of doing it. The tools allow us to introduce more abstraction and maybe get more things done faster sometimes, but sometimes also not. And I'm talking here a lot about software engineering, because this is also the area that I feel topic-wise more comfortable with, but also from conversations with my fellow professors in product management, for example, I know that there are many great examples where the use of AI, and especially also conversational AI, can help tremendously to speed up the process of some product discovery phase, as an example. And there are similar examples in design as well. And ultimately, I also believe that whatever is happening today, for sure will be very different in 3 years from now. That is certain. We just don't know exactly how it will look like, but we know for sure that it will be different. And this brings me again back to this initial idea that we should really also focus and not forget about the methods that have long-term value. And this needs to be combined with staying on top of current technologies and developments.
Thank you. There was the second question there as well, which takes us away from this futuristic waters we have gotten ourselves into. It's about formats, teaching formats. So back to campus. Your campus is built in a way that invites, even forces in a way, people to interact. But what about pedagogy? What about methodology in teaching?
Yes. So very important, first of all, that in many of the semesters of the studies, there are bigger projects involved. They are designed before the start of the semester. Learning goals have to be defined. Learning goals have to be agreed upon. Professors are also involved in signing that one off to make sure that within a group, the learning goals are well aligned, and that the scope of the project broadly will probably allow for that learning. This is a very important part. And when it comes to formats and courses, I think what many have in common is that at some point in time, the conversation will be around also ongoing work and projects, so that in courses, students will also bring their current work, their current projects. To give a very concrete example of what I just recently did in a course on cybersecurity, is that together with the group, we then also look at concrete implementations of digital products that students have been building, and then we map out the necessary methods, or in this case, threats, and discuss how that has been addressed and approached, or what could have been improved. We do have in many of the modules also flipped classroom approaches. There is asynchronous learning involved as well. Of course, we provide students with learning resources, or we also point them to other externally available learning resources, which we believe are helpful, such that the study time consists of a significant amount of time that students also have to proactively, self-driven work on their topics and work and their learning goals. And then in the courses, in the sessions, they come together to discuss that, to share that. We also do have, of course, some formats which are a bit more classical, let's say. So especially when it comes to topics around basic math, as an example. So this is something that is maybe a bit harder to learn and apply while building a web application, but it is also an important part to get into the basics later in their studies. When students, for example, want to learn about data science, then for sure there should be some practical project related to that. And in addition to that, it is also important that the students regularly also meet with their project consultants, so with the professors who are supposed to support a project over the semester. So there are regular sessions and check-ins there with the groups, and there's also always the option to book individual office hours with professors as well, if students want to discuss some specific questions.
I have a couple of questions that arrived into my DM. So one of them is, do you offer scholarships? And if so, who funds them?
Right now, today, we do not offer scholarships. We have been offering for a couple of years income share agreements together with an external financial partner, meaning that students would not pay tuition during their time of studies, and when they enter the job market afterwards, they would pay back a certain percentage over a couple of years. We are currently exploring also some new ideas, trying to innovate there, to potentially set up our own solution to this challenge, because we acknowledge that it is, of course, extremely important also for us, for an institution, to provide for a diversity in our student body. And by that, I mean students from various backgrounds that we, of course, do not want to have to select based on the financial background of families or parents. But of course, it is also, I think, fair to say that the financial market overall in Germany, Europe, in the world has seen quite some challenges in the recent past, and also these financing models or also other publicly available student loans from the state also have seen some developments which definitely need to be improved in order to also ensure in the future that that people from all backgrounds can join. So no scholarships today, but we're also working on new solutions as we speak.
Well, as we mentioned, you are a young university. There are lots of new horizons, including funding for students before you in the future. So, Peter, we are approaching the end of our webinar. We have a traditional question we tend to ask our speakers. What would you advise leaders of innovative universities, and even more those who are considering innovative leadership roles, given that you've been the president, well, for already a year, and you've been at Code for a while as well? What are some do's and don'ts?
That's a good question. Maybe first, if you're curious and you want to do it, then try. Time is not going backwards. Just try. That's the first thing. And if you come into a challenging situation, which you will, I can guarantee that, and you believe that this challenge might be, or if you think that it hopefully will be less responsibilities again in the near future, that's not the case. I think life gets more challenging with the challenges that you accept, and I think that's a good thing. But what I think is very important is that you watch out for yourself, and that you really need to learn to say no. That's also one of my personal challenges. But I think this is very important because in especially in such environments, and this is really something I'm saying to all our new students when they join Code in their first semester. I'm trying to also relay that message, that if you enter such an environment, you can basically do anything you want, but you cannot do everything. So you have to choose wisely. And this is very hard sometimes, because then when you decide for something, it automatically means you also decide against something else. But you have to take this decision. Otherwise, it's going to overwhelm you. But if you're curious and you want to do it, go for it. There's great learning in all of this.
Thank you very much for this honest but still hopeful answer. Everybody, we have to close this webinar. To my huge disappointment, I would love to talk for a lot more, but in just 2 weeks, we will come back to discuss Anadolu University in Turkey. Now, please pay attention to the time. We'll be meeting at 10 a.m. Central European summertime to accommodate our speaker who is on the Asian side. So please stay tuned, share your thoughts using #InnovativeUniversities. Peter, thank you very much for your thoughtful